welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today are Louis D'Souza and Anne-Marie Young. This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Our planned guest for today apparently got hung up somewhere, so we're not quite sure what's going on with him, but we figured we'll just keep going anyway on our own, and we were kind of kicking it around a moment ago, like, what should we talk about? Louis threw out artificial intelligence. He also threw out something else, but we threw that one out really quickly. So we're going to stick with the artificial intelligence one. But it does actually raise an interesting question. I mean, is there any intelligent life on Earth? I sometimes wonder. I mean, maybe you guys have opinions about that. But
yeah, only artificial intelligence. That's
only artificial. I know it is. I'm glad there's some. Well, but it begs the question. I mean, if you don't have any actual intelligence, how do you create the artificial intelligence?
Well, I've got a 10-year-old here who knows everything, so.
See, there's the trick right there. All we have to do is just turn the world over to your 10-year-old, and we're good.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, he knows all things about intelligence. Actually, AI has become quite the topic over the last, 6 to 8 months? Oh, yeah,
massively. But I reckon Elon Musk
with the advent of ChatGPT?
ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So a little history on that. Microsoft bought out ChatGPT and has added it into its browser. So if you go into Bing, sorry, say again.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it has been useful.
Okay.
So I wanted a logo for a website, and I didn't want to pay any of these guys, and run through their crappy little programs. So I went to Bing and I went to the chat function, which is ChatGPT. It's the second tab on. So you've got search, normal search, and then you've got the next one is ChatGPT, which is just called chat in Bing. And I said to it, can you create for me a logo based on soaps? Or something to do with soaps and bubbles, for a logo for my website. And, literally a logo. So it went out and created like 7 of them, and I chose the first one, and it looks great. I mean, I wish I could put it up here, but, it's simple, clean, nice. And I said, can I use this on my website? It says, yeah, as long as you say it was made by somewhere on the website, you can use it. Now, this is an AI talking to me.
Right, yeah.
And the other thing about, first of all, I got a free logo, which is beautiful. I mean, I really, really like it. Okay. It spewed it out in seconds. It was the first one it offered me that I chose because it's got kind of like little bubbles in it. I'm able to use it for free, and, the sky's the limit of what you can create. I don't know if you've seen any of the artificial intelligence pictures, but you'll just say, give me a dragon with a knight and a sword and a sunset and some mountains in the background. And it gives you 5 or 6 options. It creates it almost instantly. It gives you the most beautiful high resolution pictures, and it gives you variations on a theme, and it's not copied from anywhere. This is
That's very impressive.
Designed from scratch, based on the understanding of what's what. And that is impressive. That is so impressive.
Now, as I understand it, AI is basically drawing, especially like a chat GPT, they are drawing from the vast body of knowledge that's available on the internet through Google and Bing and search engines like that. They're drawing on the understanding of what a dragon is and what a knight is and what a mountain is, but it is creating it from scratch, digitally from scratch. Which is impressive.
Cutting and pasting any bits and pieces. And it's a unique thing, so there's no copyright protection on it, etc., and it's offering it to you completely free, And, if you're a company and you're making logos and whatever, somebody says, make me this logo. You can do it in seconds, get ChatGPT to do it, and then sell it on,
Fiverr folks are having a great time.
I want some more information on my blog, and you'll say, okay, create a report on the environmental or safe soil from a 13-year-old girl perspective from the UK. And it'll create a nice couple of pages of stuff, and you just post it.
That's the thing. We won't be needed anymore.
It raises that. That's an
This
interesting
is the
topic.
point. This is the exact point that we're trying. I'm saying to my daughter, you've got to be able to do something that artificial intelligence cannot do.
Yeah.
You've got to be thinking in those terms. If you're studying or learning and anything that Google or AI can answer, you're wasting your time. And it begs the question, what can you do?
Well, it also kind of begs the question of what are the limits of the AI? And the reason I say that is I tried an experiment last week. I tried having the AI write the description for a program here on LOA Today. I fed in the name of the guest, what the 3 or 4 words, what the guest is all about, and said, okay, write me an article about that. And it did. And the guest told me that about 80% of the article was great, and the other 20% was totally and completely inaccurate.
Oh.
So there are limits.
Of course there are limits, absolutely, but you now only have to tweak 20%.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but nevertheless, you have to be aware of that, though. Because I would not have known that she didn't attend the University of Illinois at Chicago. That she actually attended Western Connecticut State University, because the article told me just the opposite. How would I know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing is there's some political figure in Australia who's suing ChatGPT because it said he was in prison for this and that.
This is interesting. Can an artificial
this is opening a can of worms up, isn't it? Can you sue them?
Can an artificial intelligence bot be sued? Because I think the answer is no. And the reason I think the answer is no is that in order to be sued, you have to be a person, legally speaking. And I don't think a chatbot is legally a person.
Yeah, but a human-made ChatGPT or a group or companies, are they responsible or not? So.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that argument can be made either, particularly here in the United States, because of the rules that say that a platform is not responsible for content submitted by users.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's why I'm not so sure that it can be sued.
Yeah, can you define
there'll be some loophole somewhere.
I wouldn't bet on it. Let's just put it this way. I'd want to have a real strong team of lawyers checking into it in depth before I even considered filing the lawsuit, just because, yeah.
No, absolutely. But this will set a precedent, and then people will know how to move forward, because we're needing to set a huge amount of precedents at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
The problem with, let's say, a weaponized robot with AI is, you tell your old pal, hey, mate, get rid of all the spam, please. Says, yeah, sure, no problem. And he kills all the humans.
Which is probably a good reason to not give nuclear weapons to the chatbot.
So, it's just trying to point out that's an arbitrary scenario. But, first of all, I imagine AIs are weaponized by the military already.
Oh,
maybe in the form of drones or even some robots or whatever,
Well, even without ChatGPT, this kind of bot activity as a form of weaponization, as you're describing it, has been going on for decades now. It's been going on for a long time. And the news over the years has covered what some of the main actors are in that arena. So yeah, there's nothing new there. I think what is new is the degree of creativity. Or seeming creativity. Is it really creativity? I'm not really sure about that.
Well, the whole thing is it's exponential capacity to learn, which is scaring everybody. We're at that curve at the moment where, it's starting to go up and up and up, but now it's going to rocket, and everybody can feel that rocketing starting to happen. And we're worried about that because AI learn from each other. They learn more from the internet. They're learning from each other, and they can learn from their own experience. So, humans are slow at doing this, but AI doesn't really have too many limits, besides the processing power and the memory. It's just going to go.
So if you are your daughter, because you were telling this to your daughter, what do you do to discern how to be more creative than a chatbot?
Well, I think we'd really need to dig into its limitations.
I agree.
we really need to understand what it can do and what it can't do. Like my car, my brand new car, it stops, if the car in front of me stops, it goes when it goes. It warns me when the car in front of me is left. It'll slow down. It'll tell me then the speed camera. It'll turn it on to electric when you go past the school, so that there are no fumes, etc. So, it's incredibly intelligent already for a car that is not, a self-drive automatic AI. But so, as people were saying, you mustn't underestimate a Tesla car. It is AI.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It is AI. And that is the beginning of AI into our societies, really through cars and
so clearly,
things like that.
Clearly, a career path then is a path that investigates and in some way leverages discoveries about what the limitations of AI are, and then figures out a way to take those limitations out of the way so that the AI is getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and more ubiquitous and more capable of handling almost everything, which leads us back to the original question. How do you, as your 13-year-old daughter, how do you navigate that world? How do you, what's the strategy? Because the strategies of old don't work anymore. I mean, the landscape has changed so totally. The old strategies do not work.
And it's going to change a lot more.
And
you know what? Sadhguru has been brought in by the AI guys to chat to them. And he's just like, why the hell are they bringing me in? And there is a very valid reason for it, because he really has a very unique take on it. And it was a while since I watched that. But I really need to go back and understand it, because he really shows the limitations of what AI can and cannot do, to a level of clarity which I haven't seen anybody else do.
And when you say limitations, do you mean like what I would call hard edge limitations, edges that can't really be exceeded?
Yes. Because he really talks about, the soul and its creativity and that aspect which created AI, And, I think he brings up this example. These guys were saying, look what the AI can do. It can do this and that and that and all the rest of it. And then, he was saying, it can create this and that. And he says, well, can it create a planet? Where are you going to get the soil from in the first place? So he goes back really to the absolute basics. Where are you going to get the foundation from?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a valid criticism, to be honest. The reason I don't think it's a valid criticism is...
I'm doing a very poor job of trying to transfer something I watched about a year ago.
Let me tell you why, though. I understand what he's saying, but he is skipping the element of time. You give the AI bot enough time, it's going to figure out how to accomplish all those things.
How to accomplish making a planet. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or universe.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me give you the analogy another way.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the realm of spirituality, actually more toward the realm of religion, because that's really where this idea comes from. The idea of a God, and that humans are made in the image of God. That's an idea that pretty much is found in almost all of the major religions. Certainly Christianity, to a lesser extent, kind of Islam, not quite, but kind of. And well, anyway, I won't go into that kind of criticism, but my point is, if we are created in the image of God, and in fact, we've talked here on many occasions about if we are spirit, if we're source energy, and we're created of and by source energy, and we are self-created in that sense, then anything that we create is also going to be based in source energy. It's going to be an extension of the creative process. So why isn't it not only possible, why isn't it even likely, because I think it is likely, why isn't it likely that artificial intelligence becomes just as, quote, intelligent as humans are?
No, it'll way supersede humans.
Well, okay, but I mean, the point is, at least catch up. At least catch up.
No, it'll way surpass us. I mean, it already has surpassed us in numerous things. I mean, it's got so much data at its fingertips that we can't even begin to comprehend. It can compute it. I asked it to create the other day a word search puzzle.
There are a couple of things it's lacking on, though, as far as we know so far. There doesn't seem to be any genuine sense of self-awareness yet. You can get a chatbot to act as if it's self-aware in terms of how it responds to you. But you can also find that this is what earlier computing, I hesitate to say gurus, fans, early computing fans called the Turing test, named after Alan Turing, who was one of the fathers of computing. And the Turing test is essentially, can a human detect whether or not they are interacting with another human or with a machine? If the machine can convince the human that they're actually interacting with a human, then the machine has passed the Turing test. That's the general idea of the Turing test. So I think that what AI can do right now could probably fool a lot of people into thinking that they are, that they're real human beings.
There's a level of sentientness.
That there's a sentience going on there. But so far anyway, and I'm not quite sure if this ever ends, it's very not only possible, if you stick with it long enough, you find inconsistent answers coming back, or maybe not inconsistent, incongruous answers that are not truly congruent with the question you asked or with the statement you made that suggests, wait a minute, that's really not the way a human being would respond. Now, I don't know how long that is going to last, but right now, that to me is the greatest exponent, if you will. It's the greatest example of how sentience does not appear to be part of the AI continuum yet. And I emphasize yet, because I don't think that means that we're not going to get there. I think
the bottom line is we don't know. We really don't know. I think AI is going to be used heavily in the sex industry.
Oh God,
virtual reality, sex robots, etc. I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if it already is, to be honest.
I was going to say, I'm sure they've already got stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, not fully yet, but it'll come in a big way because gaming and the sex industry has led a lot of technology.
Oh yeah. Isn't that what anime is all about? Is that the way they pronounce it?
Anime.
Is that anime? That's basically obvious, but it's computer generated beings.
I'm not 100% sure about that. I know my daughter's best friend dresses up in anime and cosplay, they call it. Yeah.
Okay.
The girls dress up as the characters in the anime series. And I must say, they do a damn good job. I've seen the animes and I compare them to that, and they really can pull off a credible thing. They go to big conferences in London and things like that about it. So, wow. But going back to AI, I watched. I've watched quite a bit about Elon Musk. Elon Musk is suggesting that the American government frees, or I think more than the American government, I think he really would like it to be worldwide, but I don't think we can control many countries like China and Russia to agree with us, but to stop for 6 months AI so we can get the legal precedent in place to control aspects of it, which he feels is desperately needed at the moment, which is an interesting idea.
Who's the he?
Elon Musk.
Oh, Elon Musk. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So, he's been putting out on the internet for years and years and years now that AI is dangerous and nobody's listening.
I don't think that anyone's going to follow his example on that one, to be honest. He's alienated too many politicians, first of all. But even more than that, he doesn't have a political pressure groups. Not really. So I'm wondering, why does he think he can actually get that?
It's not that he wants to pressure them. He's concerned for the planet. He could ignore it. He's got some of the most advanced AI there. He
wants it in the sense that he wants to get that 6-month moratorium in there. That's the pressure. That's where he wants the pressure applied.
He wants to what?
He wants the 6-month moratorium. That's the pressure he wants to apply.
He doesn't want to apply anything. He's just suggesting this will be a damn good idea.
Well, that's that's sort of like I want to be politically active, but I'm not really politically active.
you know, the guy's very, very interesting. He's off the spectrum. He's really, you know, you have to admire the guy. You just have to. What he's created is just gargantuous and unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
You know, he's now into not only SpaceX, what he's achieved in the time frame is just unbelievable. And specifically time frame wise, he's now got, quantum computers. And he's starting to unveil how incredibly far they've got with this already. I think it's about 3 or 4 years down the line. And they've really done leaps and bounds forward at the moment.
And we can't really talk too much about that one unless we make clear what that is, because I have a feeling like 99% of listeners have no freaking clue what a quantum computer is.
Well, maybe you can explain. I don't even know.
I can. Yeah. Let's just say it's a different kind of computing, and it's so different.
Let's just say it's law of attraction type computing.
In a sense,
yeah.
It really is. But it's computing that's so different that they don't even use typical computer chips. I mean, the whole structure of the computer is entirely different from what you're doing there. Yeah.
Completely different. And when you look at the design and how it looks physically, it's really wacko. It looks like something alien. It really does.
It does. And to make things even more confusing, when you try to understand how to program it, it's really confusing. I mean, it is like there is nothing that fits
no precedent
the way humans think. It's its own way of thinking about things.
It's incredible power, you know, just for anybody who wants to understand. It's just, it's processing powers off the charts.
But is that not AI?
Absolutely off the charts.
It certainly fits into the general.
It'll link into
realm.
AI when it hits the software level, but
yeah, you know, there isn't a whole lot of software yet. That's the point.
Yeah, it's not. So, you know, they've got the AI, but they would have to make the existing structure talk to the quantum structure. So, these are just
I was just going to say the basic goal, by the way, just so, I mean, because we aren't really giving a good description of what quantum computing is because we have trouble describing it ourselves. But the basic goal with quantum computing is to take problems that are really, really, really hard to solve, even for computers. You know, just, I'll give you an example that nobody really wants to have happen, but it's going to happen at some point. Imagine a computer that could figure out how to break through encryption so that they could steal everybody's credit cards. Again, I'm not saying that we really want that, but that's the kind of thing that mathematicians think about. And theoretically, quantum computing can do exactly that. Practically is the part that we're not at yet. The level of practical programming through quantum computing it's preschool right now. It's really, really in the earliest stages. But the fact that they can do it at all is the amazing part. I mean, they can actually get these things to do these incredible calculations really, really quickly. Like, whoa, how did they do that?
So just to give you an example, I heard about this many years ago, but they have designed a technology that if I want to send you an encrypted message, Anne-Marie, I encrypt it with a quantum computer, with a quantum key. And if anybody just thinks about cracking it on the way to you, it'll self-destruct. Think about cracking it. It'll self-destruct.
Which leads to new levels of cyber warfare.
Absolutely. This takes it to another level that you haven't even dreamt about.
This world is just changing.
You have no idea.
I think I like the simplicity of life as it is without all this.
Isn't that an interesting description, Louis? She describes it as simplicity. What we're dealing with right now, smartphones and laptops and clouds and so forth, 25 years ago wasn't only not simplistic, it was incredibly difficult to understand for most people. Now it's simplicity.
Oh, so no, I'd rather get rid of those as well. I want to get rid of them. Get rid of it all.
You know, what many people don't actually really appreciate is how smart your smartphone is.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's far smarter than any of us put together almost, you know. One of those phones has got more knowledge, understanding, and computational power to do incredible, mind-blowing intellectual things, which we can't,
Well, I have a question about one of those. I certainly agree with the knowledge. Understanding, I'm not sure about that one, because again, we're starting to talk about consciousness at that point.
Yeah, we're starting to talk about, that level.
So I'm not 100% sure of that one.
Yeah. It's a difficult one, yeah.
I mean, each time
maybe
the
there
phone crashes, you get an argument in your favor, but other than that. I always like to think about a computer crash or a smartphone crash as a device saying, "Stop! Enough of this craziness."
But I promise you, there are a huge amount of people that are using this in the workplace now because it solves a lot of little problems. A lot of little problems, Okay, I have to write a letter to the school. My daughter's sick. Hey, ChatGPT, my daughter's got diarrhea. Can you create a nice formal letter to the school? And bang, there it is. Send it off. But can you create me I want to get married and give me what do you call those things that you hand out to people? Inviting them to the wedding, an invitation. So wedding invitation, can you create for me a wedding invitation? Like my wedding, it's going to be at Victoria Falls. We're going to do elephant rides, bungee jumping, white river rafting, and walking with the white lions. Can you add something in and produce it for me? And you can just imagine what AI can come up with, some incredible pictures and words.
Are we going to get to the stage where people just no longer need to think and then stop knowing how to think?
No,
because they don't need to do anything
what
for
it's
themselves.
Going to do. So Anne-Marie, what has the dishwasher done for you?
I don't use mine.
Oh my God.
I tend to do it by hand. I prefer it. Seriously.
You have to use something else. What has your car done for you?
Well, it cost me a fortune. But
yes. Oh dear. Bad example, but you get my point. What it does is it's saving you time.
Has the car not made you lazy? Has the car not made people lazy, Louis?
Well, I would rather use a car to go to work and then do a exercise that is of my own volition, like white river rafting or parasailing or skydiving or something like that. So it's freeing up time for me to focus on doing things that I would never possibly have the time at if I had to go carry the water from the well, et cetera, et cetera. You can go on and on and on. So, I'd be happy if, it made my bed for me in the morning and made my breakfast. I'd be as happy as a pig in Palestine. Open the door when a guest comes. I'd be really, really happy. It just saves me time. And then I can focus on creating this, doing that, working on this philosophy, using more thinking about ideas on this, that, and the other, which is what I spend a lot of time doing. I'm looking at making a new business now about super greens, which I told Walt about. I'm looking at the whole safe soil movement is very interesting. They're starting to do this all around the country, so they might have it near you, Walt. I don't know, around you, Anne-Marie, but they're giving away 100 free lessons of yoga.
No, I hadn't heard of that. No.
To 100 to 150 people, ideally. So they're looking for accommodation at the moment in the UK. And it's got to go through a whole approval process. And then they're going to be giving away free sessions, literally paid by the Isha Foundation, by Sadhguru. And this has been doing, I think they're spreading this worldwide. I don't know if they're starting in the UK, but he's actually in America at the moment, Sadhguru.
It's an interesting way to basically spread what they're doing quickly.
Exactly. So, they're going to teach people to relax the mind, meditate, wake up more blissful, blah, blah, blah. Some will get it, some won't. It doesn't matter. But they're offering this for free because, Sadhguru says if we can just get 1% of the people having a more relaxed mind and just, focused and clear, then, you'll start getting that cataclysmic effect of, affecting your children, your family, your friends, your colleagues at work, etc. So, he's working on that way. He's working on the soil way. There are other people, and there are thousands of different people with different groups doing this. It's not just Sadhguru. There are hundreds of different groups doing it. In his own way, although I think Walt will have a beef with this. Jordan Peterson is doing the same thing. He's starting his own online university. He's spreading his message in many, many different ways. He's helping people just get up and clean their room, start from a really basic, simple place and all the rest of it. And his 12 steps are really basic. I mean, they're really, really basic. Just getting people to have a sense of connectedness and down to earth and, loyalty to themselves and honesty, which he's promoting. And he puts up a video and he gets about 4 million in a week or something, views. And, there's other people and other people and other people. I can go on and on and on about a lot of people that are sharing their message and their way of doing things. And I'm just getting excited about, they now have the power and the leverage of the internet, which is opening a massive scape for all these guys to promote their stuff. And I'm really interested to see where this is all going, because it really feels like quite a positive movement in all these different ways, in their own unique way, of course. And, some people are going to be able to use it and some won't. And, it's just the way it is.
Okay, I'll bite. Why am I going to disagree?
Oh, no.
You said I was going to disagree. I'm not sure.
I mentioned Jordan Peterson before, I don't think you were too pro him.
Oh, I don't really care much about him one way or the other.
Have you watched much of his stuff? Do you understand?
Not a lot. No, I have. Since you mentioned him, I now have some awareness of him, so I can't say I spend a lot of time on him. No.
Well, he's ex-Harvard professor, and I just bought his book on Audible because had a credit lying around. And to be honest, this is why I wanted to speak to you about politics a little bit, because there's many things he's bringing up that I was completely unaware of, like common law in England that was created. I was fascinated by it. I was completely unaware that it was based on the premise that everybody has freedom. Then when you have a conflict, then you will get the guys who resolve it into the thing, and then that will become a structure which will then start integrating into the society, whereas opposed to the top-down structure, where the government just says, you stop doing this, or you do that, or you do that, which is an enforced thing from the top down, where the common law is from the bottom up. So that's why I wanted to ask you if you knew much about common law, because it's something I'd never really understood before.
I know some. I can tell you that I know enough to know that the way he's presenting it, if what you're saying is accurate, and I suspect that it is, that the way he's presenting it is actually a distortion of the way common law came about. And what
the distortion, did you say distortion?
A distortion, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's probably more accurate to say that common law evolved in order to promote the freedom of the gentry.
I agree, but I think it's been taken up differently along the way. This was just where kings were and the peasants, and, I understand.
But that's where the common law came from. The common law actually did not apply to commoners, except adversely. It was not everybody's equal under the law.
Well, the commoners didn't really have any say in any sense at that time. They really didn't. They didn't even understand how to read and write.
Yeah, well,
it's a different world.
If you're trying to take the argument that he takes, and I'm familiar with that one because I used to engage with that one quite a lot. If you're going to try to take the argument that this created a sense of universal freedom, you're already taking the bit, so to speak, because you're basically buying into something that really was not what it was all about. It was not about universal freedom.
Well, basically the way I understand it is the king wanted all the power to tell all these guys what to do. And they decided to get together and make a document that would support them trading and working together unilaterally.
Even that's misleading, because the document that you're referring to there is the Magna Carta in Britain. But the
the development of common law, is it?
It is. It's quite different. Yeah. I mean, it's a piece of it in a sense. It's sort of like, in some ways, it's like a foundation stone of common law. But common law isn't a single document. Common law is a collection of, essentially, they were small court rulings that developed into a body of understanding. Mm-hmm. And that body of understanding was routinely followed by the court system in the UK, or particularly in Great Britain. And as it was followed, it became... It's like anything else that becomes just part of our culture, our tradition, so to speak. Our tradition is, well, we always do it this way. So that's the way it's going to be. And that's the kind of evolution that the common law created, in a sense. And
so America used or was built on common law? Yes, no?
Well, it was heavily influenced by common law because the majority of settlers in the U.S. came from Britain. Mm-hmm. And so they were already socialized in the way Great Britain thought about things. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, common law came over to the U.S. and since before it was the U.S., when it was the American colonies were governed under the precepts of common law because the colonies were owned by owners in Great Britain. So that structure was kind of imported, so to speak, and then it has played a significant role in how law in this country started and evolved.
Mm. So is it Singapore, if I got that right? A country that's doing incredibly well for itself.
One of many, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So from what I understand, that country, Dubai, somehow or other has used the same principle. And some countries in Africa have used this principle. So they basically destroyed their political structure and built it up from common law based on the principle everybody's equal. And when you have a dispute, then you create rules and then you move it forward. And they say that this is one of the most economically successful. I mean, in 10 years, Dubai changed from almost nothing into, have you seen the pictures of Dubai? It is gargantuously amazing. So they're saying it's very, very, very good for economic growth.
I'm not sure if I go so far as to say that they grew out of common law. I would say that common law influenced them, just as common law influenced the growth of the U.S. and common law influenced Australia and New Zealand and other countries that were Canada, other countries that were formerly part of the British Commonwealth. But did common law build them? I'm not sure I'd go that far. I don't think that's necessarily accurate.
Because this is just something I'm completely unfamiliar with, which has been started to be brought up on many different levels in different ways. And, the thing with, save soil and help the planet, etc., the thing that I'm coming to really understand is that, when people have got a lot of money, they really care about the planet. When they haven't, they're not interested at all, which is very logical.
Sure, that's the pyramid of needs. That's the Maslow concept.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs, yeah.
Yeah.
So, one of the ways to improve the planet massively, I would say, is just to improve the poor, to get the level of wealth higher and higher and higher for the average
I think it's
people.
Yeah.
So, finding ways of doing that, one of the ways is implementing things that have been successful in other countries, which is bringing in a more common law aspect to the whole legal system, which is just the thoughts that have been introduced to me. And some of the conversations have been fascinating about a lady, a black African lady who was in Senegal, and her parents left the country, went to Germany. They started being successful. Then eventually they got around to bringing their daughter out. She stayed with her grandma. And when she came over there, she was absolutely shocked at the level of ease of life. The beds, the cars, the roads, just things we just take for granted. And it left a stark impression on her as to why Africa was in such poverty.
Yeah.
And eventually, after a long, long journey, which she explained step by step by step, she's an incredibly successful lady now, massively successful. She realized that, you really need to get to the economy of the country. and what's the best way of doing it. And this is where some of the common law practices and philosophies and beliefs, she said, just to get a form signed there to do something, would take like a year, and you'd have to bribe 50 people. And, you go to America, you fill out a form on the internet and it's done instantly. And it's like, the time frame has to change in Africa to get things moving. And, she really painted an incredible picture of what she did. She created a product, and I think she built it in her country, but sold it in America.
A lot of people do that. We're the
made
test
a fortune with that, and then pumped the money back into Senegal. So, it's really interesting, and trying to find a way of changing the whole political landscape is the huge challenge for all of us. People get to power, and they use is it Maslow? Who wrote The Little Prince?
Yeah,
Machiavelli.
Machiavelli, yeah.
So a very Machiavellian concept. So just if you don't know, Anne-Marie Machiavellian was a philosopher who was at the aid of princes and kings and all the rest of it, and they asked his advice, and he taught them that no matter what, if you really want to change the landscape, you have to stay in power, and you do anything you need to stay in power. So
to put it another way, he create a moral framework to justify totalitarianism.
To justify it, yes. Yeah. Good way of putting it. Yeah. So a lot of people will throw the word Machiavellian around. It's a very Machiavellian idea or Machiavellian way of thinking or whatever. And so, yeah, how you change a lot of this is really interesting, because I really think one of the things we can do, and there's this think tank in America that has taken all the different scenarios for the least amount of money, how you can help improve people on this planet.
Okay, I'm curious. There are a lot of think tanks here in the U.S. that try to do that. I'm curious to know which one you're talking about.
To be honest, I didn't get into all that. It's just idea was, the philosophy was interesting to me. The philosophy is, if you sit down and break out and prioritize what will do the most good for the least amount of effort and money, then I think that we can move forward in helping the poor, the different problems, and even saving lives on the planet, which is a biggie with a lot of these guys. And they've broken it down, and they're really simple, incredibly simple. And it really gives you food for thought as to, is it worthwhile sitting down, prioritizing it like that to get a balanced overview? And these guys, in theory, have got nothing to gain from the study, in theory. And if you look at the broad spectrum of the 18 points I think they really varied. So, yeah, I don't know. It just seemed to me that what they came up with was a really, really interesting idea. They had things with mosquitoes, very, very simple ways of dealing with, because it's still a huge problem in the world. We may not think so anymore, but the mosquito is an incredibly resilient creature, and quite deadly. And pregnancies, they brought up a whole lot of little things, and just to help. And there were simple ideas, simple. So, there's so many things I have to go back over that I'm learning at the moment. But just the philosophies of what I'm really grasping is because, it's who I am. It's all about the philosophy. And, I think the principles are really quite good and quite accurate. Is the idea of taking them, prioritizing them, and then finding groups of people who want to implement them, because, something like Bill Gates has got more than enough money to influence it. It has the charity and all the rest of it. A lot of these things are right up their alley, but, I don't know if Bill Gates has actually sat down and prioritized them in the way this think tank has, and probably has in some way, or he feels he has. Maybe he hasn't. Maybe he's not interested in that at all. I have no idea, but it's just the idea that prioritizing them would be very
The thing that's interesting
idea.
to me about think tanks in general, because we certainly do have a lot of them here in the U.S. and not just here. There are think tanks all over the world, but we seem to have more than our share. I'm not quite sure why that is, but we do. But the thing that I've noticed most about think tanks is that there are a lot of them who produce very little because they are think tanks. There are some that produce a bunch because they don't limit themselves to being think tanks. To me, it's kind of similar to what we talk about a lot here on the program. It's one thing to focus on what you're thinking about and to be consistent in your thought process and so forth. And if you do that, you're going to manifest certain things. But it's another thing to also tie it to action, because action kind of just takes whatever thought process you're doing. And if it's congruent, if the action is congruent with what you're thinking about, you're going to accelerate it, many, many, many times over. And I see the same thing happening with think tanks. There are think tanks that all they do is they put the ideas out there, and sometimes they try to tie in a political angle and get a political group pressuring behind it and so forth. And they don't really go very far with their ideas. But there's a small handful that do tie in action pieces. And by action pieces, I don't mean trying to get a political thing going. I mean, go out and just, instead of complaining that we need to have more solar panels, you just go out and build more solar panels, that kind of a thing. They actually just go out and start doing it. And I think over time they stop being thought of as think tanks, and they become, nonprofit organizations or something along that line, NGOs, something that plays a slightly different role. I think that the ones who come up with these really great models are terrific. I would love to see them turn them into action. Instead of trying to get somebody else to turn them into action, just go out there and get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I do see the benefit of having them separate.
Which is what?
Which is, you can focus on your specific area and then let somebody else focus on the other areas. And then, because there's the focus in the different areas, you can have, really quality stuff come out of it all. But if you're trying to bake the egg and cook it and get the flour and, do all the different pieces together, then you start, losing it along the way, which many a company does.
Well, what you're describing is the value of specialization. There's also the other side, which is that if you're so much into specialization, you don't actually get anything done.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of mega corporations are at right now. They reach a point where they have everything specialized. They got everything segmented into, everything delegated in 1,000 different directions, and then they can't move forward. Because they're just so bottom heavy. They've got so much going on there. They don't know how to actually turn it into action. That's where an entrepreneur comes along, and he can beat, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, because the corporation is bogged down in all this specialization. Whereas the entrepreneur says, "Oh, I'm just going to build the damn thing."
Yeah, I mean, that's where Elon Musk is incredible. He just takes an idea and starts manifesting it just like that. And it's like, oh my God, how does this guy do it? Everybody else would take many, many years to do what this guy's done in very, very short periods of time.
I've said before, one of the things I admire about Musk is the phrase. I think he came up with this phrase. I'm not sure if he's the one who invented it, but he certainly applies it. I know he applies it in SpaceX, and I think he applies it in his other ventures as well. And that is fail early, fail often. Yeah. In other words, absolutely. Don't worry about trying to get it right. Just go out there and screw up, because you're going to learn a ton from it.
Yes.
Somehow I don't think
that's a great motto.
He coined that initially, but
he may not have, but he certainly has implemented it better than anybody else.
He's definitely implemented it.
Yeah,
and it is a good philosophy to teach your children at school and all the rest of it, and everybody on every level, teach them that one, because that is so important. Yeah. That's how we grow and move forward, as we get to know what we don't want. Abraham Hicks also said something which left a mark on me when it came to scientists. They said, the problem with science is there's usually somebody who wants to make money out of it. So they direct the scientist. We should have big fund tanks just to let scientists dabble.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I disagree with it strongly, actually.
Yeah.
And the reason I disagree with it strongly is that it's based on a false premise. The false premise is that there will be no outside influences. There are always outside influences. You cannot.
But you can reduce those. You're talking ultimate now.
But you can't eliminate them. And until you can eliminate them, you are not going to eliminate the politics that goes along with it. And that politics is going to be what messes the whole thing up.
Anne-Marie's getting bored.
Yeah, I can tell.
But when a conversation's really going well, you can you can kind of feel it. And I'm starting to become more and more sensitive to that. So, I'm trying to find out when somebody else is not completely in with it and listening and all the rest of it. So, I'm trying to change it.
I have been listening. It's very interesting. It's just some of the subjects is just not in my radar.
I know. But, you can really start picking up when a conversation's really working well and people are growing out of it. I was watching Jordan Peterson speaking to some Muslim. So he speaks to them once in America, I think. And it's a guy half his age who's not got 180, IQ, etc. Jordan Peterson's got an IQ of 180. He's Harvard professor. He's, blah, blah, blah. And he's speaking to this Muslim, and this Muslim, then he talks online away from the Muslim about certain aspects of Muslim, but he pushes the buttons. He pushes the absolute limit to where he can go with the whole Islam thing of what he finds difficult and all the rest of it challenging. Then he sees him in London, and both of them eventually decided to go, even though both of them were warned that they shouldn't speak to each other. And then they sat there and they're having this conversation and they're building it up and trying to find common bridges and all the rest of it. And you can just feel the conversation's really good. Yeah. And then the Muslim went off on the trip about, Christians and this, and then the belief this and this, and then Jordan Peterson said, stop. I can just feel the whole energy of the conversation going now, because you're just spewing out this intellectual stuff about Christians, Muslim debate and going on. And, let's just move past that and let's get back to where we were before and the exciting interchange and agreement and pushing the boundaries of, what you believe and where we are and where I am. And, let's get moving forward again. And he did. He literally shifted the entire conversation. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was momentous. I mean, I could see the whole dynamic of everything and all the pieces that were going along there. And I was like, wow, and something I'm now looking for more actively in myself is when a conversation is really flowing and when everybody's kind of listening to the other person. Jordan Peterson's very big on saying, when somebody's got an argument or a problem with you, you must stop, listen to them, make sure that you repeat exactly what their point of view is and get them to agree to it and then continue forward. Because then the person knows you've heard them and understands that you're on that page. And then, then you can really move forward with discussing your side as well. And he said, it's a really tricky thing to do.
It is.
Because you really have to listen to the other person and be honest about it.
It's a trick that counselors use all the time, isn't it? It's just a mirroring thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's mirroring, but it ties into a lot what we talk about in terms of energy flow. Because those moments where the conversation seems to come to a stop, the way you were describing it there, those are the times where resistances are being introduced. And as those resistances come in, like any time that you resist energy flow, what's going to happen? It's going to come to a stop. I mean, that's just what it does, Whereas when there aren't resistances in place, that's when it's getting exciting and it's flowing and juices are going and all kinds of cool stuff is going on because no one's introducing any resistance points. So what he's proposing is that we need to overcome the resistance points by having people feel like they're being listened to, and that is a very effective tool. But it's also, I think, there's something else that needs to happen, and I think we're still learning how to do this. We need to also learn to appreciate why resistance points are there. It's not just enough to listen, I don't think. I think it's also, how can I appreciate? I may not like what they're saying. I may not agree with their resistance point. I may not feel the resistance the way they do, but can I appreciate where it's coming from? How can I feel about it? Which is really more, it goes beyond the listening part. It goes into the grasping part, the part that says, I get it. I get what you're doing. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I get it.
Yes.
When you get to that point, then that's when the juices start flying again.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it sounds like to me in that,
where you're coming from.
I was going to say, it sounded to me like in that conversation where he stopped that conversation, they were exploring stuff together. They were exploring their views, and then suddenly it changed. You guys do X, Y, Z, and he's pigeonholing. They're not exploring anymore. It's dented that whole conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I know exactly where the guy was coming from. It's old programming. I have spoken to millions of Christians, and I bet you he's been one of those guys who are at the Speaker's Corner in London. You know what I mean? And they have all these Christians walk past, and they absolutely annihilate them completely. The Muslims are definitely, from an intellectual point of view, studied it all up and understand and have got clarity on it from that point of view in their minds. Okay. You know, the Christians come up there and they make, every time I watched the whole scenario there, they didn't make a clear point. And the Muslims just tore them strip off here, strip off there, you know, and, but the point I'm trying to make here is, you know, Jordan Peterson is known to be disagreeable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he's talking about the incredible strength of disagreeability. And he says disagreeable people will get cheaper prices because they'll haggle more. Disagreeable people will get paid more in the workplace. That's, you know, it's psychologically studied that disagreeable people will make more.
Yeah.
And women are more agreeable than men, you know, and these are little things that, you know, when I said I wasn't into psychology before, he's starting to paint a picture of what they've studied, and what they've come up with, which no other psychologist that I have ever looked at or, you know, gone into has been able to point some of these simple things out to me. And, you know, Jordan Peterson is known to be particularly disagreeable. And he has a way of bringing it into agreement afterwards, because he says if you're not disagreeable, then how do you know where to join and where to meet and how to create the bridge? You've got to see what the boundaries are.
I might take issue with his word. I think I call it not so much disagreeable as, what's the word I was looking for? Resilient. Yeah. He's resilient in what he believes. And that resilience, other people might interpret as disagreeable, but from his perspective, it's like, I believe this, and nothing you're going to do is going to penetrate that. This is my belief, period. End of story.
But it's not only his belief. You know what I love about Jordan Peterson is he's really tried to do what I've done my whole life, is study what the heck are we doing here. Mm-hmm. You know, he's really gone down to the foundation and he's built it up from that and up from that and up from that. And where he is at the moment, understanding the whole complete interplay between politics, psychology, technology, etc. And he's really knows a lot, to the degree that he completely loses me, especially when it comes to politics and psychology. He uses words and phrases, even though I've studied a bit of, because he brings in philosophy as well. So he's got psychology, philosophy, and he's got it on a deep, deep level. And when I'm saying deep, the reason I love it is it's intrinsically built into him. He understands his own thinking completely clearly, you know, and he can spend time slowing it down and explaining it to you and pointing out exactly what he's talking about. And it's rare to find somebody like that. And I was really impressed, but I think we run out of time.
That's true. How'd we do it? We flew again. Like, whoa, okay. Yeah. Well, that was something.
Now, I mean, just one thing about disagreeability. If you think X Factor, which judge sticks out?
Say again?
If you think of X Factor very quickly, which judge sticks out?
Oh, I'm not familiar enough with X Factor to give you an answer. Sorry.
Yeah, will it be Simon Cowell who argues with everything?
Absolutely, and who's disagreeable, but in a very interesting way. People really, you know, respect his disagreeability. You know, they have a lot of time for his decisions, and he's been incredibly successful with them. But what I'm trying to point out is the disagreeable ones tend to stand out in society, and they tend to forge greater paths than a lot of others, which is something I've never really thought about. You know, I think your word is correct, Walt, the resilience aspect, because when you know what you don't want, you have a good idea what you do want, and what comes out of that is great resilience. So, yeah.
I think also that the people who we would label as disagreeable are the ones that get our attention, but there are a lot of other people who are resilient who have learned how to disagree without being disagreeable. And so we don't think about them in that same sense. And yet they have exactly the same qualities. And in fact, I would suggest there are more of them than there are of the, quote, disagreeable ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can see the stress, the disagreeability aspect of Jordan Peterson's put on his body and his health, you know, and, you know, if you listen to his story, he's really suffered a lot in that arena. because he really takes it to heart, Like Louis would tend to brush it off more. He really, if somebody attacks my character, I really want to look into it and I want to study it and I want to, feel it all and break it down and build myself up stronger. But, which I kind of do too, but I'm a little more Teflon coating than he is, definitely.
I think we have a new nickname for you, Teflon Louis. I like that.
Yeah, I've been called that before at work. One guy came up to me and says, "You've got such a bloody thick Teflon coat."
What do you think, Anne-Marie? Is that one going to stick?
No.
That's a pun and a half, isn't it?
That's a pun and a half.
I was trying to set you up. What can I say?
I was just thinking how this whole conversation started like with my 10-year-old running the country because she knows it all and she's also extremely disagreeable. I mean, come on.
It. Is she? Okay.
You should run. There you go. She's got it.
She's going to be very successful.
Made for life, I have no doubt.
That's a great summary. I love that. I often like to ask, one of you guys to summarize the conversation. You just summarized it beautifully, Anne-Marie. That was that was excellent. Wow. So thank you guys. I appreciate the conversation. And we may not have had our airline pilot guest on, but I think we flew pretty well on our own. So nice job all the way around. Thank you guys much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Take care.